freaking first cut. Golly.
What's good, everybody? Welcome into the first cut. I am the coach in for Rick, alongside my main man, KP. Kyle Porter, what's good, man?
Not much, Coach. Just finishing up round one here. It was an eventful day, although it looks like it might not be an eventful weekend given how Scotty Scheffler played in the first.
I said today at one point, I said if he plays like this for today and tomorrow, it's going to be a victory lap over the weekend. Thank goodness, though, as we look at it, they're wrapping up on 18 right now. Scotty Scheffler shoots a 5 under 65. Best round of the day, Kyle. Two guys shot 64s, Fitzpatrick and Joaquin Niemann. Xander doing what Xander does. He shoots a 66. And then the craziest round of the day, Rory McIlroy. He had 4 pars, 8 birdies, an eagle, 4 bogeys, and a triple bogey, all in 18 holes. And apparently his caddy, KP, told him it was the craziest 18 holes he'd ever seen him play.
It was absurd. I mean, I don't know if we want to start with Rory, but he made 4 pars, shot 67, and I think the craziest part, Coach, is he was almost last in driving. He got into a ton of trouble on the first hole, tripled that hole, lost a ton of strokes from tee to green, and still shot 67. It was a strange day all the way around, but I mean, obviously the headliner is Scheffler, and I thought what was weird about his round, Coach, I know you watched most, if not all of it, and covered it. It didn't even feel like he played that well.
You're exactly right.
And he shot 65.
Yeah.
I mean, he makes the early eagle on, what was that, 6?
6. He birdied 3 and then eagled 6.
And from then until 17, you're just like, yeah, he's playing fine. He saves a bogey here and there, makes a bunch of pars, and then all of a sudden you look up and you're like, oh, he's 5 up. He shot the second best round, I guess third best round of the day, and his only competition, in my opinion, is one guy, which is Xander. And I guess that's just the benefit of having a great year, right? And starting where you start at the top of the board at 10 under. So to me, that was a big takeaway, is that Scheffler, and that's a little bit of who he is as a player. You kind of watch him and you're like, yeah, he's playing fine. And you're like, oh, he shot a 66, and there are guys like that. It's not super flashy with him. It doesn't always look that great with him, but man, he can score, and it's super impressive. And I thought, even a lot of the par and bogey saves that he made throughout his round were just as impressive as the scoring that he did.
There's no question about it. He had 2 short misses. He had a lip out for birdie. He had a really short miss for birdie. He would have been 2 deeper than what he would have been at. The craziest part for me, and I've got to stop doing this when I call Scotty, because we called his entire round, is if you just put a camera, KP, on his feet and you said, what kind of a golfer is this? You'd say 12 handicap.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the craziest thing I've ever seen, but he's been doing this since he was a little kid, and that's just what he's used to. And I just think that especially guys like myself have got to stop thinking at some point he's going to stop playing well, because he's just fantastic. Even on 18, he was deep in that Bermuda grass that just sucks the ball, still got it onto the green with one of those step-through shots that he does, and he just figures out a way. And I think Xander is the same way. They just figure out a way, like you said, to score. Flip side of that, he played with Patrick Cantlay, and Cantlay did eagle 18, but other than that, he didn't play well at all today.
Well, it's weird too, because I think Scheffler is a little Spiethian in that you watch singular shots and you're like, I don't know, like, what is this? And you watch Cantlay, you watch individual shots of Cantlay, and you're like, man, this guy's unbelievable. Like, he's got every shot, right? Like, he hits these beautiful towering irons, and it I mean, that in and of itself just it speaks to just golf being completely absurd, and it doesn't always reward what looks the prettiest, and that's, I mean, we know that that's 100-year-old theme, and yet it's hard to remember it every day sometimes because you watch it and you're like, oh, this is what it's supposed to look like, and then the guy that it's not what it's supposed to look like goes out and beats that guy by 5 shots or whatever. So I thought Cantlay was fine. It's just I think it's so difficult, Coach, to I mean he went back to back at BMW and to do it at Eastlake. It's just really hard, and he didn't have a great day today. I think he needed to get off, especially with the way Scheffler is playing and played last week. Scheffler was really good last week, finished T3 at the BMW, and I thought Cantlay needed to just, I don't know if he needed to catch him, but he needed to not be down 7 after the first day. That's really problematic, and it's the reason that I think there's only one guy that can catch Scheffler right now.
Well, they're showing highlights on Golf Channel, and the one hole I'd forgotten about this, and I called it, was Scheffler when he went from the bunker over the green and then still was able to get it up and down for a really good bogey and save a shot there.
That was 9, right? I think it was 9.
I believe it was, yes.
It
was a par 3.
Yeah.
I think the thing about this, and now that we've had a couple of years to get used to this staggered start, it's always one of two things on Thursday. Is the guy in first going to put the pedal down? Does he have what it takes? Or is that number 1 seed going to play a little conservative because they have a 2-shot lead? Scheffler is the former. He doesn't care. He'll step on your throat and keep his foot there for 18 holes. Don't let the, hey, I love God, I'm a nice guy, fool you. This guy is a savage, and I think we're starting to see it this entire year. Now, with that being said, he's at 15 under. And now as we start to go down the list and look at other guys today, there was pretty good scoring. So we had a bunch of guys that shoot 3 under. Sungjae, Cam Smith, McIlroy, Cameron Young shot a 3 under. Justin Thomas, John Rahm. So a bunch of guys shot 3 under 67. Did anybody jump out to you?
I think Xander. I mean, just his history here. I don't know if you mentioned Xander in that group.
No, well, he shot a 4 under. These are the guys. Xander shot a 66. I mentioned the guys that shot 67. But you can talk. Xander's in that same group.
Well, I wanted to jump to Xander because he's so good at this course. And I mean, you look at his course history. He's played 21 rounds here now. This is his 6th appearance, and he gains 3.5 strokes a round on the field. And these fields are not, no offense, but they're not John Deere fields. They're not 3M Open fields, and to contextualize that, Tiger in his career at Eastlake, he gains about 3.3 strokes per round. So Xander is better than Tiger over the course of his career at Eastlake, where Tiger's had a lot of success. He's won multiple times. And Xander's just been unbelievable at this golf course. And that's why, we go back to our best bets from Tuesday. I just felt like he was like a lock to finish in the top 5, and maybe he doesn't, but it certainly looks that way after round 1. And I think he's the only guy, if I'm Scheffler, and Scheffler's probably not even thinking about this right now, but if he is, he's the guy that I'm most concerned about because he's so consistent. He won't go away. He doesn't make a ton of mistakes. And he's just so good at this golf course. So that stood out to me from kind of the top of the board. Rory was interesting. I don't know if it was good. It was a roller coaster. He could get hot and shoot a couple 65s, I guess, but I don't know, Coach. I don't know how you feel. It feels like a 2-horse race to me. It feels like Xander and it feels like Schauffele and Scheffler, which good luck to announcers everywhere, including yourself, with that over the weekend. But
I've screwed it up so many times.
It's very difficult, but it feels like those two guys. And I picked Scheffler before the week. It's hard to imagine him not winning with a 5-stroke lead after, with just 54 holes to go. But who knows? I mean, we could get something crazy from Joaquin Niemann. Matt Fitzpatrick was really good. Man, he's so long. Yeah. The drive he hit on 18 was absurd. I don't know what the number was. I could look it up here in a second, but he had just such a easy shot into 18 there, made eagle to shoot 64. He's really stood out to me. I don't know if he's like most improved player in the world this year because he was already really good, but he's been just awesome. And I was impressed by him in the first round.
I was too, and he was very kind of aw shucks after his roundabout at 64. And he says, "I like this place. It's my first time here." And there's a lot of guys, there's a lot of first timers here. But when you look at it, I think I'm going to need to buy you dinner, Kyle, because of I really listened to what you said on Tuesday, and today we gave out Xander in a matchup because of what you said on Tuesday. We cashed that on the early edge. I played all of Xander's props that I could because you give us all the numbers, and then he goes out, and I never felt like he wasn't going to shoot at least a 66 today.
Well,
and, so,
and it's not just the course history, right? If it was just that, you'd be like, okay, that there's something there. But he's also playing great, and it got a little buried by, he wins the Scottish, he wins the Travelers, then he was okay. I can't remember where he finished at the Open Championship. I think he was okay there, nothing crazy.
Yeah, I remember.
And all that got buried by the Open, by live and like all this other stuff. And it's like, wait a second, Xander's like one of the 3 best guys in the world right now. And if you're marrying up single players to single courses, it's like Rory and Quail Hollow, it's Hideki and Phoenix, and it's Xander and Eastlake. I mean, you could go down the list of other guys and other courses, but it's been, the numbers are extraordinary. And so I'm glad to hear that, you might make a little money off that.
No, I'm not going to make a little. I've already made a lot. I've already made a lot. I'm not even going to tell you the number, but it's definitely in the 4 figures. So I owe you dinner. I owe you dinner for sure. And what's crazy was the number for Xander, KP, was so much lower. I think it was the biggest discrepancy between with the staggered start and without the staggered start on Xander.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, his number was really, really low to be the lowest guy if you didn't have the staggered start. So yeah, I think that's pretty cool. A couple other small nuggets. Aaron Wise went out today. He had to play by himself, KP, because of the Will Zalatoris. And I said when we started, because I had the very first tee shot, and I said, is this going to be a good thing to Billy Kratzert or a bad thing? As well, some guys like playing by themselves. Well, he really did. He went out and shot a bogey-free 65 by himself, matched by JT Poston as well.
Yeah, he was good. I think what's interesting about him, I wrote about this a little bit after the round, is I don't think he's playing for a President's Cup spot, but he might be. I think he's a really interesting President's Cup guy with Zalatoris out. Mm-hmm. You've got a clear-cut top 11, and then beyond that, you've got kind of a weird mix of guys. You've got some veterans like Kevin Kisner. You've got some journeyman like Tom Hoagie, and then you got Wise a little bit further down the list. He's in that category where he's still young enough that you're like, he might be on some American teams in the future. He's I think he's a little underrated. He's really solid. He can be streaky, but that just stood out to me of like, if he has a really good week, I wonder if that means anything. Excuse me, for the President's Cup captain's picks here over the next couple of weeks.
I think right now, at least from what I'm hearing down here, I think everything is on the table when it comes to the President's Cup. And I feel like because of where it's being played at, and I don't know if you agree with this, I feel like Kisner's going to be on the outside looking in again because it's not a good course for him.
No, it's not. He did finish up near the top at the 2017 PGA that was played at Quail Hollow, but broadly, I agree with you. It's not – you don't – like if you're going to Austin Country Club where he's dominated at the match play, you take Kevin Kisner, right? But if you're going to Bethpage or Quail Hollow or Whistling Straits like we saw last year, you probably don't, and so I don't know. We probably don't need to get too deep on like the 12th man on the U.S. roster at the President's Cup.
That's
but
probably true.
The Wise thing did stand out to me. Data Golf had some numbers about how of the available Americans, he's among, the 10 or so best in recent months. So I don't know. That just kind of that intrigued me about his first round at the Tour Championship today.
All right, very good. Not much else stood out. A lot of guys hit 1 under, 2 under. So we will leave it right there. Now, we got to look forward to tomorrow. The odds have just come out. We'll talk about that. But first, we've got to hear from one of our incredible partners. And we are back. All right, at least the odds, KP, have just come out courtesy of Caesar Sportsbook. And I'm going to be honest with you. This Scotty Scheffler number, I might pound that tonight. because he's got a. If I just ask you, KP, what would you bet if I gave you Scotty Scheffler and a 5-shot lead over the field? What would you say?
Well, yeah, it's. I think the hard part is there's so much golf left.
I know,
and right. I think we're still a little bit biased by the 10 under number at the beginning of the week. Where if you told me like, hey, Scheffler shot a 60 on Thursday and the next best round was 65, I'd be like, yeah, that's really good, and it sounds like he could win. But I think I'm more compelled because he started out in front of everybody, if that makes sense.
Sure.
And I don't know that that's necessarily the right way to look at it. I think the guy that I'm most intrigued by, if you'll scroll down on this list, is there you go, Joaquin Niemann at 25. So wow. Joaquin Niemann goes back to back. What did he shoot? 63 to open Riviera earlier this year.
Wire to wire. Yep.
He's just somebody that when he gets hot, you're like, we might get 464s in a row. I mean, the odds are not good, but he's one of those types of guys to me that is just terrifying when he's hot, because it just is like everything he touches is a 3, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that's really interesting because he's only, what is he? He's 7 back. So he's two back of second, right? So if you, I think it'd be interesting to hit Scheffler and somebody like Niemann, where it's like, okay, I'm betting both the leader, and then also I'm kind of betting on who's going to finish second. And then if Scheffler collapses, then you get that guy as your winner. I'm not saying that correctly, but you're getting you're kind of getting it going both ways.
Here's what I would do. With Xander being plus 550, I would bet 500 on Scotty. That's going to be like a $700 bet, right? Then you'd put 100 on Xander. If he wins, then you're going to win 550. It's basically a wash. You're protecting it, but you're only betting 100 against the 5, right? So you could win 500. And then maybe sprinkle a little bit on Niemann, which is 2 back. And now that $500 bet is protected by $200. So you're going to come out, as long as Scheffler's there, with those 2 guys. That's what I would do.
I like that. I do like that, because Fitzpatrick is interesting. Cantlay, I don't know. I'm not feeling Cantlay. And then I think everybody else is too far back. I mean,
they're so far. It's just
Rory and Cam, I guess, but I 8 back on the number 1 player in the world with 3 to go. That
Rory number, that's a sucker's bet. If you're watching right now, that Rory number at plus 1,400, you're like, oh, that feels pretty good. He's 8 back. He's 8 back. That's a sucker number.
As good as he is at this golf course, it's hard to envision him. Could he finish in the top 4? For sure. Is he going to win the golf tournament? I don't think so.
All right. Well, we will be back on Friday night. Before we get out of here, because we had a really good conversation that I watched between Rick and Greg about all the changes that we announced here at the PGA Tour. I got to be part of a meeting yesterday that I was thrilled to be a part of. And a lot of these changes, and I know, KP, that they're looked at as reactionary. I know for a fact, because I couldn't talk about it, some of them I was told about 3 or 4 months ago. But regardless, it doesn't matter. The changes are being made. The top players are going to be called the top players. So I think some of what you've argued and some of what I've argued has kind of come together. I would love your thoughts, and I know the fans at home would love your thoughts on all the changes the tour has decided they're going to make.
Yeah, I mean, they're well, unfortunately, we don't have 3 hours for me to give all my thoughts. But yeah, I think it's would you have liked to have seen? Here's the hard thing about the PGA Tour, and I think this is what people are, I think in some cases, rightfully frustrated by with the tour. And I've voiced this in some cases. What's really difficult to do is to implement change when you are the clear-cut leader in a given industry, right? That's like the best companies in the world do that. It's really hard. And I think that we sort of look at some organizations and are like, oh, well, you should have seen this coming and done X, Y, and Z. And some of that is fair. Like, I've been critical of the tour. I think they have done a bad job of creating this sprawling schedule that is just not that compelling in a lot of cases to kind of satiate or satisfy 250 people when, as we have talked about, Coach, there's like 8 people that matter to your product, right? And but in the tour's defense, like, to go back a year ago or 2 years ago and say, hey, we're going to make a bunch of change. Now, I think the argument is like, hey, could you have made like some significant changes over a long period of time? And should you have? Probably so. Like, you probably got a little bit.
And I would agree with that too. I would agree. Even though I work here, I would agree with that.
Yeah, like a little bit resting on your laurel, whatever. But all that being said, I'm pumped about next year. And I had this, I don't know if it's an epiphany, but I had this realization as all this stuff comes out. I was off on Wednesday, so I'm like trying to play with my kids and I'm like checking like what's going on. And I had this moment where I was like, I don't know that I've ever been more excited for a next year of golf. I mean, you think about getting all these guys together at the same events, and I think the best case scenario of that is to describe it like you're getting 12 Players Championships. That's not what it's going to be, because the Players Championship is special. It's got a different history than other places, and the Players Championship can't be replicated 11 other times, I don't think, but it could be close to that. And that's awesome, because the Players Championship is great. I look forward to the Players Championship every year. And I think that I don't want to get into the details of like the PIP and the money, like all that stuff. But I think just broadly speaking, it made me really excited about next year. And if I'm excited about next year, then I think that my friends who are just fans of the PGA Tour are also really excited about next year. And I think that's a big win in a year of a bunch of losses, you know, for, at least like public relations wise for the PGA Tour. That's a big victory, I think.
Do you know how hard it was for me knowing some of this information, and then you and I would spar here on the first cut, and then the one day I remember, and I almost slipped up and said something when you said, I want to see the best players play against the best players more. You remember that day? Do you remember that day?
I do, yeah.
I had just had a meeting, and they kind of told us, and they tell like guys like me just enough, but not specifics. So, right.
Yeah.
So when you hear this story, they're like, hey, we're going to have a tour within a tour. You're like, how is that going to work? Then it comes out that it's going to be nighttime, prime time, all that kind of stuff, which I think is going to be pretty cool. Full transparency, I've already called Tiger. I've already called Roy. If I'm not the voice of that, then something's wrong in this world. But what I find the most inspiring about all of this is that they got the top players in the room. And I'm okay with calling them top players, because for a long time, like you said, we never wanted to say that there was a difference, right? But there clearly is a difference between Rory, JT, Spieth, and, lack of a better term, Sepp Straka, Tomo. You know what I mean? And so
JT Poston.
There you go, JT Poston. And for those guys to get in a room and say, we're going to commit to the same 17 tournaments and all play together 17 times. Then they got to play 3 more, whatever the numbers are. But you're going to get them. What do we get them now? Maybe 8, maybe 9, but not all of them. Now we're going to get all of them. And to me, that spoke volumes about the players. And I think, and to your point about making change, when you're adding hundreds of millions of dollars, it doesn't happen in a week or a month or even 2 months. There's a lot that goes into it. You got to go to companies who now are maybe cutting salaries or cutting people and say, listen, can you give me $10 million more? Can we do this? So all that was taking place. I knew, I'd say 65% of it. And so when I can't say anything here on the show, but I know it's coming, I think that's where my frustration was, is knowing what was coming and just saying, let's give it time. It's coming. I'm super pumped, because also from my perspective, they're going to elevate the announcers. So I'm going to get to do all the big tournaments.
Yeah.
I'm not going to have to do the John Deere. I'm not going to have to do the 3M. So And then also the other thing is every top player has to play 3 other events. So it's not like they're all going to get screwed over and not get top players either.
Well, and I think what's interesting is what announcements they make. I saw Monahan said 45 to 60 days on some of the specifics. Do they make the extra 4 elevated events? Do they rotate them around? I think that's something that I talked about on here of like, yeah, you know what would be sweet is the John Deere getting, instead of getting like one guy every year, getting every guy once every 4 years.
That'd be amazing.
Right?
That'd be amazing.
It would be like to the John Deere, it'd be like a major, which is, to me, that's just, I don't know. Maybe people who go to the John Deere and run the John Deere wouldn't agree. That is better than getting one top guy every year. You get all the top guys once every 4 years, and then you have a field that's not that good the other 3, and that's fine. Like that's kind of already what you're getting, right?
That's
so
right. That's right.
You almost just get like this bonus of getting all these top guys together and I don't know how that's going to work. I don't know if they will rotate it around, but I hope they do, because that would, I think, keep up this sort of spirit that the tour has had of like, hey, we go to these communities that are super interested in golf and have supported us over a long period of time. I hope they don't just jam those events I hope they don't like plug them in forever to specific places. I hope they bounce them around so that, people in the Quad Cities or in Phoenix or whatever get to see all the top guys, because that's part of the entertainment value of the PGA Tour.
Well, LeBron goes to Milwaukee, doesn't he? Kobe went to Oklahoma City. So
yeah, totally.
I think it's a great idea, and I think the players now understand with them coming together this way. They understand what they need to do. If you want to be looked at like the NBA or the NFL, then you got to act like it. And if you're going to act like it, then every top quarterback plays every Sunday. Everyone, they play every Sunday. You get to watch all of them.
Well, yeah, and that's what I think I made that point earlier this year about, and maybe it was on Twitter, maybe it was on here, I don't remember, but you don't tune into the NBA for 2 weeks in a row and don't see a single star. That never happens. You might, there's load management and guys take days off and whatever, but there's not like the 2 week stretch after the Open Championship where only Tony Finau is playing. You don't tune into the NBA and only Dame Lillard is playing for 2 weeks. That would be absurd. Like that would never happen. And some of that is the tour's fault for like making the schedule where guys can play sort of whenever and spreading it out over 11 and a half months. And like, I get why they do that. And it does provide opportunities for the 200th guy or whatever to play golf tournaments, and it provides entertainment for fans, but it just dilutes your product. And so you almost, if you're going to do that, if you're going to keep the 48 weeks or whatever, you have to delineate the best weeks from the not best weeks. Otherwise the product is diluted, and that leads to, that's not like the best way to make the most money and to even have a product 10 years from now. And it took, I think some of that was like already starting, and maybe Live accelerated it, but whatever the case, like, I'm glad that they're moving toward that and just calling it what it is, which is a stars portion of the tour and a not stars portion, because honestly, like, that makes the overall product better, even for the players that are not stars.
And if you're not a star and you want to complain about not being called a top guy, guess what? You can become a top guy. It's going to be fluid. So go out and earn it. Two final things. Actually, one final thing. The other thing, two. So the biggest thing, as you can imagine, that got an applause in our PGA Tour live meeting yesterday, because we've been working year-round, and people that have to work during the NFL season, it's like spitting into the wind. You're like, why am I here announcing golf when I know nobody is watching? Is the fact that now we're only going to work January through August. And there'll still be golf in the fall, but we're not going to have PGA Tour live on golf in the fall, because it just doesn't make sense to spend the money there. You can spend it and add production to other events, which is what they're going to do. And I'm all for that. The final thing, and I want your comment on this, is the fact that every player on the Korn Ferry Tour or anywhere else that's affiliated is going to get $500,000 guaranteed. And that was the other sticking point, is there's got to be some guaranteed money out there. There's going to be stipends for when you miss a cut so you can pay for your caddy's plane ticket. $5,000 doesn't sound like a lot, but it is. It is. It covers expenses. And so now the Korn Ferry players are going bananas because now they're going to have a guaranteed $500,000. And I think that's awesome.
Well, I think what's interesting about that, Coach, is I've been not critical. I've just sort of made the point that I don't know if a pure meritocracy works in 2022 with how much money is thrown around in professional golf. And what they created was essentially guaranteed contracts, although they're being earned against, right? So it doesn't cost the tour a bunch of money, but guaranteed contracts not only at the bottom, right, for the 130th guy or whatever, but also at the top with the PIP, right? And so you've got built it's like a weird, and I don't know if it's the best way to do it, but it's the way they chose, and that's fine. You can't guarantee money if you're a nonprofit, and yet they found a way to sort of do it by promising money to the bottom that you earn against everybody, but specifically the bottom, where if you give JT $500,000, he's like, cool, I'm gonna surpass that in two tournaments. It's like it's meaningless to the top guys, but it's not meaningless to the bottom guys. That's
not on the Korn Ferry Tour. Wow.
Right. But are all the Korn Ferry guys getting it? Yes.
If you are Korn Ferry or higher, from what I was told and I understand, the Korn Ferry and higher gets a guaranteed $500,000. And a lot of those guys make between 100 and 300, and that's a good year on that tour.
See, I thought it was tour exempt only, but I might have misread that.
This is all fluid. I full disclosure, I could be wrong. There was a lot of stuff thrown at us.
But I think that the other thing is the money at the top that's guaranteed to guys that, frankly, are the ones that make 80% of your revenue, right? The Rory, JT, Cantlay, Scheffler, whatever, whoever you want to throw in there. Now you got $100 million built into those top 20 guys. I think they could have left it at 10. I mean, whatever, like 20 is fine. But so you have guaranteed money at the top, you have guaranteed money at the bottom. And is that a perfect way to do essentially contracts for guys that to earn money? I for a nonprofit, it might be, and I think that is the only way that I don't know if it's like the ideal way, but I think it's the only way you can operate in 2022. I really do. And so to answer your question, I'm glad that they've gone to that and are guaranteeing the best players the money that they're bringing in, and the bottom players money against what they're earning, so that they don't feel like, hey, I'm having to take out loans to do my job. That's an absurd thing.
Most of the guys, they complain about paying for the caddy, and the expenses are what really get to you. And I called 3 Korn Ferry Tour events in July, and everybody that we talked to was like, well, I'm driving from here to there. And I'm like, oh, my God, no wonder you're exhausted when you show up. You're driving to all these events to save on plane tickets.
Yeah.
Now, the thing that I thought about, too, is all the guys, because we know the live contracts, you're bidding against it. So when you win, it's coming out of that signing bonus. And all those 100 million, whatever, just 5 or 6 guys, that's divided over 4 years. So that's 25 million a year. What do you think they thought yesterday when they've now gone to oblivion? And the money's nice, but nobody's paying attention to them. And now they see this, where essentially the top guys can earn almost as much over the same period of time.
Yeah, it's really interesting, because not only you jeopardize your major status to do that, right? Like you put your major championship status for guys like a Koepka. Koepka's got a year or 2 left in major exemptions. Obviously for the PGA he's got longer, but the US Open also. But I think the others, I don't know. Like is Brooks Koepka going to be in the Masters in 2026?
I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe not. And so I Yeah, I think there's been a lot of I don't know what you've gotten, but I've gotten a lot of hey, Phil was right, vindication. And
Me too. Yeah, me
it's
too.
like, well, maybe, but also like Phil was yelling about media rights and NFTs and a bunch of stuff that didn't change at all.
Correct.
And I think that I wish, and Rory said this on Wednesday, and he's like, listen, like, as much as I hate to give Phil any credit at all, which was hilarious, there's some stuff that is probably I don't know how he phrased it, but my takeaway was there's some stuff that's maybe gone down or happened faster than it would have because Phil and these guys left for Live. And I think the frustration there, and this is sort of what Rory was getting at, is like, yo, like you're Phil. Like if you get everybody together like Rory and Tiger did and go to the tour and is like, hey, this is what we want to do. Well, what's the tour's going to say? No, like get out of here. Like
correct.
I think it's being painted as like, oh well, our only option was to partner with the Saudi Arabian government. And you're like, what? Like that was your only option. And I don't know. I think that there's a lot of revisionist history that happens there, and I understand some frustration of like, hey, this got done in however many weeks or months because the tour's panicking a little bit, not panicking, but just like fearful about what's going on. And it would, and I think objectively, it wouldn't have gotten done that fast if
I agree.
Say Phil, Tiger, and Rory get everybody together and say, and do the exact same thing. And so I understand that frustration, but man, there's just a better way to kind of go about getting all this done than partnering with the Saudi Arabian government and Greg Norman to create the Live thing.
I told somebody on Twitter, I said, hey, you're right. And I'm sure somewhere, wait, I don't know where because nobody knows where Phil is. I'm sure he's not jumping up and down right now going, oh, they got it. They got it. They got it.
Yeah.
He could have done it. You're right. He could have made, I estimated the other day, I counted up between his endorsements and what CBS would have paid him. And Kyle, our company would have paid him $15 to $20 million. No question.
Yes.
So he would have made $40 million a year and been a hero for the next 25 years.
Well,
this would have come too.
Yeah, and I don't know if there was like an inability to Phil's. I don't know. And Rory got asked this, and he's like, it's impossible to say like if stuff like this would have happened without Live, but it just seems like they could have done this with Phil, with Tiger, with Rory, with JT, with DJ, and without Live. And maybe that's not true. Like, and maybe I'm just believing something that's a fiction, but man, I have a hard time believing that if Phil and Tiger and all those guys got together and like, hey, let's and maybe they wouldn't even have had like the foresight to do such a thing if not for a threat like Live. Maybe just that threat forced like players into this. But man, a lot of changes happened in a short amount of time that I feel like if they would have partnered at the very beginning with all this could have also happened without like this absurd thing that has kind of fractured the professional game.
You know what somebody said to me today that I thought was very interesting because Jay Monahan was very clear when he said, can these guys come back? But he goes, no, but time, I'll never say never to anything. I work for Vince McMahon for God's sake. And he did some crazy stuff. A person came up and they said, Coach, what do you think about this? What if, because if going to Live, Bryson, DJ, I don't think it had a lot of effect. But if they came back and you add them to the top guys, now there's an effect. He said, what if you make them go to Q school? What if you make them start at the bottom and earn their way? Wouldn't that be sick?
That would be hilarious. It would be hilarious. I mean, like you start over, like you have no PGA Tour, like your whole thing is wiped out. That would be pretty interesting to watch DJ playing. I mean, DJ wouldn't do it. Bryson might, to watch Bryson playing on the Corn Ferry Tour.
Play in the fall. We got the Cowboys and Packers on CBS. Oh, they're over there. All right. That was actually a better conversation than I thought we were going to have on that. So really, really cool. I think we've gone long enough. Very cool tonight for you, KP. Are you on tomorrow?
I'm off tomorrow.
Okay. Somebody will be here tomorrow. I know it's going to be Greg. I think it's going to be Rick and Greg tomorrow. Then it'll be Rick and me on Saturday, and then the usual crew on Sunday. Nice job, KP. We'll see you soon, all right? All right. Enjoy round 2, everybody. This has been The First Cut. See you tomorrow.